What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer. Earlier today, some of the Overwatch developers took to Reddit in an AMA where they discussed Mauga and his impact on the game, but also delved a bit into some other hot topics, such as hero bans being a potential new feature coming to the game, reworks for various heroes, including Wrecking Ball and Reaper, along with offering some never-before-seen insight into some scrapped abilities Mauga had while back in development. So let's just go ahead and jump right on in, first up with a comment regarding the Wrecking Ball rework, which is evidently in the works. Now, this is something we technically already knew about beforehand through some other comments from the devs recently, but now we get a bit more insight into what they're actually aiming for with Wrecking Ball as a hero, with this comment mentioning, "We play tested a first round of Wrecking Ball changes last week and think it's off to a good start. Overall, we are looking at making it a bit easier to play alongside Wrecking Ball with various support heroes, increasing Ball's options in combat, and implementing some quality of life changes. In terms of timeline, it depends on how far we go with some of the changes and what's required there. It could end up as a bigger balance patch, it could end up with giving Wrecking Ball a new ability. Right now though, I think it'll lean closer to the first and not need the same sort of support that Roadhog and Sombra needed. Hopefully get something out there in the next few seasons." So first off, as a Wrecking Ball main myself, I am glad to hear that they're looking to improve Wrecking Ball, but of course I'm very skeptical and nervous about the idea of them reworking him. A hero like Wrecking Ball, who's so incredibly niche in particular with his mechanics, feels ripe to be ruined when it comes to reworking him. So I'm glad that it sounds like they're at the very least not aiming to go for a rework on the same level as Roadhog or Sombra, but rather to just refine his kit, make him a bit better, and try to improve him that way. Increasing his options in combat I think is a great idea, as fun as smashing through people in ball mode is. It's relatively simplistic and especially in the 5v5 format isn't terribly effective a lot of the time, so I am glad that that's an aspect of him they're looking into. The idea of making him easier to play alongside specifically for support heroes is an interesting emphasis to give. Depending on the support hero you're playing, he's already pretty good to work with, slap a Zen orb on him and whatnot. But nonetheless, I am cautiously excited for these upcoming ball changes. The one major concern I do have from this comment though is the mention that hopefully we'll be getting something out in the next few seasons, which means despite not being a rework on the same scale as Roadhog and Sombra, it may take as long as those reworks ended up taking, which was many months. So yeah, I guess we'll see how that ends up panning out. Unfortunately, Wrecking Ball might still be bad for quite a bit longer, but fingers crossed. Speaking of reworks though, it was also mentioned that Reaper may in fact be getting a rework in the near future, with this comment stating that Reaper is also on that list. Had our first brainstorm and have aligned on our overall goals for what we want to see with Reaper's abilities. One of those goals is modernizing Reaper's kit, Shadow Step and Wraith form standing out there. We may also explore some new abilities for Reaper on the right click, but don't want to take the space just because it's available. If we add something there, we'll want it to give him slightly more decision making in combat than he has currently. I gotta agree, Reaper does seem like a prime hero for some sort of tweaking or maybe even a rework of this capacity, given how simple his kit is. I think the idea that Reaper's kit is outdated is very spot on. He definitely feels like a hero who was made for early Overwatch 1 as opposed to modern Overwatch 2. So I am certainly curious to see what they come up with here, but I imagine like the Wrecking Ball changes, it's something we're probably not gonna see for a while still, because Blizzard is very slow with their reworking and tweaking of heroes, which on the one hand is good because it gives them more time to refine it and make sure the rework and changes are actually effective and improve the hero, but it does suck having to wait for these, especially when it requires multiple seasons in order to get implemented. Next up, we got a particularly long comment delving into the development of Mauga as a hero and some of the abilities that he actually had while they were designing his kit that ultimately ended up getting scrapped. Game design goes through a lot of iteration to find the most engaging combinations of mechanics within the scope of our goals. We naturally try a lot of prototype variations, even with a strong starting idea. We tried a few alternate mobility abilities for Overrun. One of the first ideas was a short-range dash that would toss enemies into the air behind him if you impacted them. It was fun to use, but the transition from third person to first person and trying to turn around to shoot them wasn't easy, and solutions like automatically doing a 180 with the camera took away control from the players. The weapons had a couple alternates, such as a flamethrower or incendiary grenade launchers. There were a few attempts to have two very different firing weapons in each hand, with one being hit scan like it is now and the other being a travel time projectile. It didn't play as well when trying to fire both at the same time, unfortunately, especially in versions where they have different firing rates and how you want to aim travel time projectiles by leading a target and tracking the ammo pools separately is difficult. The Cage Fight Ultimate was pretty successful from the start, but we still tried other versions to see what would play best. It was a physical wall instead of a barrier at one point. There was also a completely different ult that was more of an area effect debuff to enemy damage dealt, the opposite of damage boost. So there's a lot of interesting details in here, particularly the mention of Mauga having flamethrowers and or incendiary grenade launchers at one point I find very intriguing. As some of you may know, Wrecking Ball actually originally had flamethrowers in an initial version of his hero kit that was being developed before ultimately getting the quad cannons that he's had ever since release. So it's funny to hear that they once again tried and experimented with having a flamethrower tank hero being Mauga, but ultimately again ended up with just hit scan guns basically. God, flamethrowers just, they really can't get them to work, can they? I do also think it's interesting that there seemed to be a strong emphasis on the flaming fire incendiary mechanic of Mauga as a hero, as even though neither the flamethrower nor incendiary grenade launcher ended up being a part of his kit, he still has the incendiary chain gun, which lights heroes on fire and is his kit now. So definitely a through line there where they really wanted to have some sort of fire element, it seems, as part of his kit, even if it meant him not having chain guns, which I find rather interesting. I will say though, the dual miniguns on him do feel very good, so I think for Mauga specifically, they probably went in the right direction by focusing on the two miniguns as opposed to having two different types of weapons, but I would still love if we somehow, someday, finally got a hero who had a flamethrower. It's only a matter of time. The next comment addresses a hero who people have been discussing quite extensively lately in terms of needing some sort of tuning, that being, of course, Ana, and as stated in this comment, anti-heal is a useful mechanic for the overall health of the game, as it helps to ensure that healing never gets too far out of control. The complaints around it feeling oppressive are understandable, as debuffs are never something players enjoy being affected by, and we'll be looking for ways to soften its impact while keeping Ana a viable hero. The simplest solution here is just decreasing the duration of the effect, though there is certainly a point where it swings from feeling OP to not useful enough if the time is too low to really capitalize on it. The reaction around it does also suggest that healing is probably too impactful overall, so we'll be looking to address that in the near future as well, whether that is handled in the case of individual heroes like Roadhog Take a Breather, or more systematically. Now, this comment in particular was directly responding to a question about Ana's power, especially when it comes to tanks like Mauga and how effectively she is able to just shut them down. So it's interesting that they only really focused on the anti-heal part of her kit, which admittedly is the most oppressive part of her kit, but still it seems like they aren't super eager to actually nerf either Ana or anti-heal. It seems like maybe they'll dabble with nerfing it a little bit, but then they also mentioned the idea of healing overall potentially being too impactful at the moment, which is something I kind of agree with. I don't know, I feel like at this point we've gotten so used to the copious amounts of healing in the game that it's like you're used to it now. You just assume that somebody you shoot at is going to get healed faster than you can damage them. That's just how Overwatch 2 works. So I don't know, I'm interested in seeing if any of these changes end up going through. Nerfs to Ana and or nerfs to healing overall on a systematic level. That'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on, and as a tank main, I don't think I would mind if Ana got nerfed just a little bit. And the last comment I wanted to highlight from this AMA details the previously mentioned hero ban system Blizzard is currently experimenting with for competitive, which incorporates banning particular heroes in a given competitive match. We want to clarify here that the first time we do this, it will be for a limited time as an experiment. With that said, we're still discussing how exactly it will work in the match flow and where we put this experiment. Should everyone get a ban against one hero in their role? Should this experiment actually run in competitive competitive for a weekend, or should it get its own queue? How long is this phase before you select heroes? How much time does a team need to feel like they are strategizing, but not so long it significantly increases the match length? Those are the sorts of questions we talk about in our design meetings around this. I think any sort of ban system in Overwatch has the chance to be fairly polarizing, especially when your main gets banned. The point of the experiment will be to gather some initial feedback and make sure that if we ever move forward with permanently adding hero bans, we've covered all of our bases. So I am glad to see that they are being very cautious with introducing hero bans, or at the very least, even just experimenting with them. As someone who's not super involved with the competitive scene for Overwatch, hero bans are something which generally I don't like the idea of, but admittedly don't have a whole ton of stakes in. Personally, I feel like hero bans are kind of more complicated than they are worth, in that it basically just limits the hero pool while inevitably just leading to a new meta that forms around 1- hero, or however many heroes get banned per match basis. I don't think it really solves many problems, at least not for the majority of competitive players. So I do like that Blizzard is considering it as an option at the very least, but of course is being very cautious with it because they are aware how polarizing it can end up being. And that does it for all the major topics talked about here today during the Reddit AMA for Mauga and other Overwatch topics. Admittedly, it's a bit of a smaller AMA than ones we've had in the past, but it is nice to see Blizzard getting back around to actually doing these, since it's been a while since we've had one. Definitely let me know your thoughts on all the topics I discussed here today in the comments down below. Are you excited for the upcoming changes to Wrecking Ball and Reaper, or maybe you're just intrigued by hearing about some of Mauga's scrapped abilities that they tested back while he was being developed? Either way, be sure to subscribe, hit up that bell icon, follow me on X, and join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any of my future Overwatch 2 news, streams, and other content. Special thanks to my YouTube channel members who help make these videos possible, and if you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. Otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.